Welcome to the Ed Leaders Edge podcast, where we interview innovators and thought leaders in the field of education who are helping students thrive. I'm your host, Ed Madison. I'm a professor and researcher at the University of Oregon, an educational consultant, and serve as executive director of the Journalistic Learning Initiative, a nonprofit organization that empowers elementary, middle, and high school students to discover their voice, improve academic outcomes, and become self-directed learners through project-based storytelling. Welcome to our program. Well, welcome back to the podcast. Our guest is Dr. Marion Wilson, who has more than 2 decades of expertise in public education, much of that in the New York City Department of Education. She's the superintendent of District 31 in Staten Island, New York, where her focus has been ensuring that all students achieve their full potential. Previously to that, she was principal at the Jackie Robinson School in Brooklyn, and she was praised for turning that school's designation from a failing grade to an A+ rating. Wow. Well, I'm so pleased to talk to you. And let's start with that. Tell me about the Jackie Robinson School and what it was like when you got there and what you did that just got such a fantastic result.
Hi, thanks for having me. Sure. I get so excited still speaking about it, and I've left the school over 10 years now. I like to pride myself on being an instructional leader. And I didn't know what I didn't know starting off. So I began in June of 2006. I came from the classroom straight to being a principal, so no assistant principal. And it was like culture shock. And I remember Dr. Lorraine Monroe had worked with me in a previous life. And one of the things she talked about is making sure that you galvanize people. You see who is for you, who's about kids, who wants to do the work. So I remember starting off, I had a retreat. And at the retreat, I gave them a book, gave the staff a book. And I knew some of them, were like, okay, how long is she going to be here? Because the school had 5 principals before me. I was the 6th principal in 5 years.
I have to ask what the book was.
So the book was Failure is Not an Option by Alan Blankstein. When subsequently I was featured in one of the later editions of it. And that became our adopted mantra, excellence is our only option. And my first year was a lot of turnover. And the school was like just really out of control and just kids everywhere. And there was no instruction. And it was easier to blame the person sitting in the principal's office than to really look at what's going on. But it was such a beautiful place. And I have to brag for a moment. It was named after Jackie Robinson, who actually played baseball on the school grounds because the Dodgers Stadium, Ebbets Field, was actually there. So that's the only true Jackie Robinson school in the country. I met Raquel Robinson. So his legend was still living there. But just thinking about what he stood for me, it was about the children. And I can't take credit saying doing it by myself. It was about the team. So after the retreat, reading the book and really being clear about my expectations of what should happen, that we can't blame the neighborhood, the parents, what's happening in the world. It's about what happens in the classroom that's going to have the biggest impact on student learning. And it didn't happen overnight. So we went from a D school, and I said D doesn't stand for diva. We have to change this. We went from a D to a B and subsequently an A+. It was just really being clear about what I expected, but supporting teachers, being clear about my vision and giving them the tools that they needed to be successful. And we started seeing changes and we started empowering student voices. And it sounded like these are all things you're hearing about in a textbook. Can it really happen? But when you mixed theory with practice and showing people that it worked, celebrating those small wins, I think is really part of the success story there. And I'm still smiling about it because we went from failing to a school in good standing.
We hear so much about achievement gaps, and I think that I know you agree with me that I don't believe in a deficit sort of way of looking at young people, that all kids have the potential, and it's just a question of connecting with them. And I'm just wondering, from creating a school-wide culture, what is it that you tell us some of the things that you discovered that worked in connecting both with the teachers, but also connecting with the students?
That's a great question. So I think even now, I'm just coming a few moments ago, greeting almost 100 new teachers to the district. And I was sharing with them what's old becomes new again. So the same things I said to my teachers when I first began as principal, I'm delivering almost that same message now as superintendent. We have to listen to children. Children have to be the guiding force. Children are not empty slates that we're filling. So kids are going to tell us whether they understand something. For me, and I didn't have a name for it back then when I was a principal, authentic student engagement, which looks at when kids are given an assessment and we know where they're performing. Are we either accelerating learning for them? Or are we providing remediation if they need it? How do you look at the curricula and make it work for children and not one size fits all? So it was about training the teachers to get them up to speed with what's effective and research based. Now everyone's talking about formative assessment. Back then, I'll be honest, I didn't know formative assessment. I just knew that there had to be some type of checking for understanding, not just at the end with the exit slip or when they came in, but throughout, through questions, through observations. Kids are going to give you feedback, and that's still like the platform I'm on now, where that learner-centered approach is children are going to tell you whether they get it, and if they get it, they shouldn't be held back and have to wait for the others to get it. So small group instruction, planning ahead, but it's the leader's responsibility to support teachers. Teachers, it's a very overwhelming profession. I remember when I was a teacher, very overwhelming. But I think when you think about deficit model, every child comes in with brilliance. We worked a lot with Dr. Goldie Muhammad, thinking about culturally responsive. How do we capitalize on the brilliance that they bring in? Not everyone may be mathematicians or doing well in reading or excelling, but what's about that child that you can capture the essence of what they do well, that you can build upon that? And I think for me, I'm always going to be in teacher mode. I'm always going to think about, is it working? And I'm looking at teacher performance, student outcomes, and everything is in test scores. But if a child comes in, if Ed comes in September, my teaching, he should move by the time we get to June. If not, we have failed Ed. So really grounding it in the standards, informative assessments, looking at it from, is the administrator going in giving feedback to teachers so they know what to do? Are we giving feedback to students so they know what to do? So it's feedback, it's feed forward. It's about assessing what we do to see, is it landing on impact? And if not, we have to do it over. And that comes from the classroom level to the school level, and even now at the district level, because insanity is doing the same thing, expecting different results. And if we constantly think about just kids can't do it, I believe in a growth mindset. If we think they can, and you give them the tools, and that's for teachers and for children and even parents, they'll rise to the occasion, and we'll get what we're looking for.
Let's step away from our conversation for a moment for me to tell you about the Journalistic Learning Initiative's innovative educational tools and services. If you're looking to make the best decision for your teaching staff and students about AI adoption, improving student engagement, strengthening writing skills, promoting social media mindfulness, or enhancing college and career readiness, please take a moment to visit our website at journalisticlearning.org. Our team of University of Oregon researchers offer customized AI tools, instructional materials, professional development, and consulting. Research confirms that students with journalistic learning experience outperform their peers on numerous key indicators for college and career readiness. At the heart of our work is empowering learners to become effective communicators. If you think about it, effective communication is critical in every human interaction, whether it's writing an essay for a grade or being interviewed to secure employment. Since 2015, JLI has benefited nearly 20,000 students and served schools in 15 states and the District of Columbia. I invite you to schedule an appointment to explore how JLI can improve your students' learning outcomes. Now back to our program.
You know, we're losing so many of our great teachers. I think COVID was really difficult for many, but also just the teaching profession. You know, I compare it to journalism profession. It needs a new publicist, because I think that people don't fully understand. You know, no one enters teaching or journalism to make a lot of money. It's truly a calling. And I'm just curious, how you go about supporting the great teachers and explaining to parents who may not get it. Tell me about that.
So I think we were supposed to have this conversation, but today is a perfect day after meeting with so many brand new teachers who were so excited their first day. And I showed a video, actually. It was like one of those little funny videos where you show the beginning of the year teacher all excited with the classroom decorated. And by the end of the year, they're like, ah. So I wanted the new teachers to laugh today, but the seriousness of it is, you know, teaching is more than a job, it's a calling. And it's something that you can't go in it for the money or the, alleged you have the summers off, because many teachers are still working. And what I said to them this morning was that I can't do this without all of you. There are more teachers than there are administrators. We have more students, of course. Our district is very large, 53,000 students across 74 schools. But I said to them, keep that fire. Keep reminding yourself of why you came into this. Keep the passion alive. And sometimes you can't impact all of your students, but if even just one of them. And what I loved this morning, the smiles, you saw the nervous anxiousness about them just getting ready to go in and embark upon this. And I was honest with them. I cried every day my first year. And I remember 1999 so vividly. But thinking now, 25 years later, I wouldn't change a thing. I told them, I gave them the Dr. Wilson's words of wisdom. And part of that was find a work-life balance, being passionate, stay current with literature, be open to feedback, but center the students. No matter how bad your day is, focus on that child that you touched. Get to know your students. The burnout will come. And I don't want them to expect to go in like they're going to change everything and they're going to have this monumental, celebrate the small wins. And I told them if they just pace themselves and just think about it in increments, find a buddy, find someone that's going to support you, but just constantly keep growing and reflecting was my advice to them. And then what I'm hoping is that my principals would do the same for them. So I was the welcome wagon this morning, but throughout the year, the principals at the school level, and I have amazing dynamic principals that try to do the same so that attrition rate is not as large as in other places, and just attracting it because it is a beautiful, beautiful profession.
I'm curious, was there a particular teacher in your upbringing that made an impression on you?
That's always the question whenever I interact with someone. Oh boy, if they're watching this, I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings, but there are quite a few. But for me, I think my transformation probably came middle school. And I have two teachers, but I'm going to focus just on one for brevity and sake of time. And that's Mr. Flanagan. Mr. James Flanagan was my 8th and 9th grade math teacher. And why he stands out for me is that I was the first girl on the math team. Math team? What's a math team? I didn't even know what a math team was. And all boys. And what he did for me was to help dispel that girls don't do math. And he helped to give me that confidence that even if I wasn't the star math student, then I deserved a seat at the table to participate in the competition. So we went and competed against other schools and we did like math problems. I was a little nerdy and it was okay. But what I think about Mr. Flanagan is what I hope all teachers do. Find that spot with students that even if they don't believe in themselves, you believing in them. And I think that teacher, the self-fulfilling prophecy, because he believed in me, I then believed in myself and I was able to step up. And I'll never forget that. And I think about all the Mr. Flanagans that our kids have access to. And up to this, we're friends on Facebook now. And I don't know if he realized the impact he has on my life. There's another teacher, Miss Orr. She was amazing as well. That was my English teacher. But my math teacher is the one that if I have to say someone who really changed me, was Mr. Flanagan. If you're watching this, I love you, Mr. Flanagan, and thank
you. Let me ask you, we're hearing so much about mental health concerns for our young people right now. What are you observing and how are you addressing that in your district?
Great question. So I did a welcome back video this year. Instead of doing the, regular letter, hi, welcome back, I did a video highlighting the 3 priorities. And priority number 1 was around social emotional learning. So we can't educate kids if we don't touch their hearts. And I think many people, especially I'll speak personally and locally, in the African American community, you don't talk about mental health. And it's like, oh, they'll be okay, or you pray it away, and we can't. We have to recognize when our young people are hurt or in crisis. We have to give them the tools to be able to actually say to someone, I need help. It's okay to say I'm not okay. So I'm proud to say in my district, most of my schools have mindfulness or meditation rooms where kids, if they're in crisis, they can decompress. But sometimes kids don't have the outward manifestation of letting you know that they're not their best selves. So how does a teacher check in? Ed smiles every day. Ed is not smiling today. What's going on? Let me dig deeper to find out. So through a social, emotional, effective research-based program, like we wouldn't just use any math or reading program. Same thing for social emotional learning. We have to be very explicit. We have to be direct. We have to check in with students. In my superintendency, I've lost about 5 children to suicide. And I'm always reflecting, what could we have done differently? And some have severe problems and the parents did the best that they could. But I want a proactive approach. I don't want the autopsy of after the fact. I want to be proactive. I want to check in. I want to check out. If it could be the custodian, the cafeteria worker, who's checking in on all children at some point, that children can either feel comfortable going to them or they going to the child. It has to be part of the curriculum, and it could be embedded within lessons. It's easy enough to just see, you know what, I'm okay today, I'm not okay today. And if children are not communicative, but let's talk about feelings, let's talk about mental health, let's talk about triggers. I didn't learn about my triggers until I was like 35 years old, teaching children about their triggers. So in our district, we do a lot of work around the Castle framework, in recognizing self-awareness, social awareness, responsible decision-making, relationship skills. So that's something that's extremely important as teaching math, reading, science, social studies.
That's great. I can't leave without asking you about AI and what how you're thinking about that in your district.
Oh, you have some great, listen, I'm loving these questions. And it's like you're in my mind's eye. So I would say earlier this year, we've incorporated AI into our principals meeting. We have a segment. I have an amazing principal, Mark Erlenwine, shout out Staten Island Tech. And he's been pushing me and pushing my thinking around, we have to embrace it. So at first there was like a ban, people didn't want to talk about it. But even for efficiency in my own role, I've been using it. Why not have kids use it as well? So some people think about it like, oh, they're going to be cheating. I rely on Alexa. I rely on Waze. I rely on my Siri. Why not have kids give access to it? And you can still provide those opportunities where you can know what they're thinking. Because if we're just worried about the writing and the output, there's ways that we have to incorporate artificial intelligence. So that's the world we're living in now. So why not embrace it?
Students to be authors of the prompts, and so they understand how to program rather than just be at the effective.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. So, seeing a principal that normally wouldn't embrace it and seeing now they're craving for it. So when we do those feedback surveys after professional learning, they all want more AI. So now it's a natural part of all of our
That's
work.
great.
And just, we're trickling it down to the adults, and then it's getting down to the children as well. So we're not totally there yet, but we're definitely in a very good place, and I embrace it. Oh, thank you for having me. It was such a pleasure. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.
The Ed Leader's Edge podcast is produced by the Journalistic Learning Initiative. Please check out our latest books, Language Arts in Action from W.W. Norton Publishing, and Raising Empowered Learners from Rauman and Littlefield. For more information about our work, please visit journalisticlearning.org or edleaderedge.org. Thanks for listening.